Something must be done. Something's just gotta be done. Something must be done. Yeah, it was Wednesday, July 2nd, 1947. Radar ops at White Sound's proving ground saw signals from a bogey approaching the ground. Roswell, New Mexico. Roswell was home to the 509th 1st Atomic Bomb Delivery Group in the USAF. For this reason, any snooping by a potential adversary could not be tolerated. Something must be done. Something must be done. Something must be done. 4 years earlier, one of the most creative engineers and scientists of modern history passed away indigently, leaving behind a trove of advanced electronic and radiological techniques. It was thought by deeply embedded scientists associated with the post-World War II military-industrial complex that some of those technologies could be put to use on such a bogey. Nikola Tesla may have moved on, but his legacy remains. And now something must be done. Something must be done. Something must be done. At the time of Nikola's passing, Vannevar Bush headed up the development of new technological assets associated with U.S. efforts to defeat Nazi Germany in the Second World War. Vannevar sent a fellow to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology collect and evaluate Tesla's legacy. That fellow, John Trump, would find a thing or two worth developing during the war effort and aftermath. Yeah, something must be done. Something must be done. Something must be done. John Trump's nephew, Donald, will become 45th President of the United States of America in 2017. Many believe Donald's iconoclastic ways will lead to a new revelation regarding these things, like occurred in New Mexico 70 years earlier. Something must be done. Something must be done. As Alexia and Britain of Antarctica maneuvered their craft over Roswell on Wednesday, July 2nd, 1947. They knew they'd have to return later. Snapshots were needed over time. This would give everyone a better sense of where things were heading, as the patterns such as nuclearization multiply. They also knew that should things get out of hand, they would need more help. Such help was not available on a purely material level. It would have to come from the stars, but not in any way others understood. It would have to come by way of Maya Varupa, dematerializing there and rematerializing here. Cosmical beings precipitate Maya Varupa using the creative imagination to envision a form, say a body or a craft. They then infuse that form with dark matter. That dark matter reinforces the pattern. The pattern then attracts or draws to itself atomic substances atom by atom, each atom filtered for place. If a body is organic, a biological form is created. if a craft skin and fuselage are made of layering specific atoms. When creating a nuts and bolts flying saucer, material is needed to implement bifold brown gravitics. To fly well requires gravitonium. In rediscovering the technique of the gravitics, Brown turned his diode into a capacitor. A tiny insulatory gap existed in the diode. He just needed to pump free electrons from one side to the other. This created that electrostatic field. When creating a Maya-Varupic craft, the precision of this process is beyond anything possible materially. Single atoms can be assembled one by one, then molecularized by way of dark matter to exact precision. Everything is created in the same way. Physical methods don't allow for this. Any retro-engineered UFOs created by human being misses the mark and has defects. Alexia and Brighton flew such a Maya-Varupa. Wednesday, July 2nd, Roswell residence, Mr. and Mrs. Dan Wilmer enjoyed what passed for the cool of a summer evening. From the front porch they saw a craft shaped like a pair of inverted dinner plates joined mouth to mouth. The craft looped around above the treetops in the old limestone quarry and quickly disappeared at a very high rate, having done whatever it set out to do. The first widely disseminated public description of a pair of inverted dinner plates joined mouth to mouth came out of a sighting by private pilot and businessman Kenneth Arnold of Yakima, Washington. Arnold had seen 9 very real craft flying south at supersonic speeds over the Cascade Mountain Range. Kenneth described them as saucers skipping on water. Saucers skipping on water. This encounter occurred near Mount Rainier in Washington State as Kenneth performed an ad hoc search for a crashed U.S. Marine Corps C-46 transport. Arnold's description was later abbreviated to flying saucers in an article published by the Chicago Sun 2 days later, June 26, 1947. The U.S. was awash in flying saucer mania that summer, and Roswell was next on the calendar. For some, the notion of unidentified flying objects, as they were later called, held a deep and abiding fascination, hinting at a far more mysterious universe. For others, Arnold's observation threatened a worldview codified initially by thinking the Earth was flat and center of everything. For most, it had little to do with the next meal and could be easily forgotten. For a very few, such as researcher Thomas Townsend Brown or experimentalist Nikola Tesla, it was a sign that they were back. They were back. They were back. The most successful assault on an airship occurred in 1947. But that success had nothing to do with the primitive aircraft of the time. It came out of Nikola Tesla's imaginative genius. In addition to championing AC power generation, Nikola Tesla had invented radio transmission and reception. Radios use a combination of microphones, oscillators, amplifiers, antennas, and speakers to encode, broadcast, receive, and render listenable amplitude and modulated radio frequency signals. Such signals blend together with other signals to make the original information, voice, and music transmittable through space, and when detected, intelligible to the listener. But a radio broadcast could not be used to bring down a flying saucer. What the government wanted was something called scalar radiology. Inappropriately named scalar radiology is said to consist of separating the electro from the magnetic in electromagnetism, then broadcasting one or the other. Nikola never created a device capable of scalar waves. It was pure conjecture on his part. Nikola hypothesized that a beam of purely electrical or magnetic waves could be sent in such a way that common materials would not block their propagation. Essentially, you could send out waves that were useful in transmitting information only, but the receptor would have to be specially designed to detect such waves and interpret them. Like Tesla, the military-industrial complex was equally unable to transmit scalar waves of this type. In fact, they would have been useless against any type of craft, flying or otherwise, simply because they were intended to pass right through stuff. But another type of scalar radiation is possible. Not just any powerful signal can bring down a flying saucer. It needs to be broadband radiation, like the sun might produce during a coronal mass ejection or an atom bomb exploding over a city. Such a burst, if strong enough, could damage every electrical circuit on Earth. Scalar radio signals had to be intense, focusable, and include a full range of frequencies. Yes, a whole lot of frequencies. Scalar was more like a scale of notes on a piano from, say, middle C to C4, with as many different notes as possible, all played at once. As many different notes as possible, all played at once. You gotta do them all at once at the very same time. Use your imagination on this. Unknown craft repeatedly approached Roswell Air Force Base. Soldiers and airmen who just managed to fight off a devilish adversary in Europe saw them and wanted to do something about it. They were predisposed to believing anything unknown was unfriendly. Their fingers would have been itchy on the trigger if only they had one. Meanwhile, the war had taught the same military how to work on a need-to-know basis. A need-to-know was not merely bound to the military, but to defense contractors and scientists as well. Need-to-know propagated up and down the chain of command. But an airman might know something a general would never be privy to. This same approach would necessarily apply to bogies approaching Roswell. The Nazis had learned by way of others that spun Mercury became weightless. But weightlessness is not propulsion. Meanwhile, the same field inducing levitation wreaked havoc with other methods that might propel craft in any given direction controllably. The Nazis lacked the imagination to solve the propulsion and control problem because they excluded the kind of person that could solve the problem imaginatively. Think Tesla. This was the dilemma of the forces at work, suppressing the story of Roswell from the general public. They too eventually cut themselves off from society without any visible means of moving forward. In cutting themselves off, they limited their potential to fully exploit what little they learned of a phenomena that had been present on Earth for thousands of years. Meanwhile, by hiding such a truth, they also planted seeds of mistrust that eventually germinated in the kind of conspiracy theory populism later developed. The whole Yes, the whole planet. Try to hide something away. Try not to speak the truth. Yeah, you can remain silent about something, but that doesn't mean you gotta lie. You don't have to misinform. Having upgraded its radar system and putting in place Nikola Tesla's ultra-high RF scale directional transmit. Military personnel at White Sands hope the next time any such unknown approach the base, it would experience the shock of its life. As explained earlier, particular interest to scientists was how the craft was propelled. Any down craft would also reveal clues to flight control, not to mention who piloted them. The reason scalar technology had the potential to bring down a saucer was simply a matter of odds. Some one frequency of intermodulation of frequencies in the scalar band just might resonate with critical systems on the craft, but no one could anticipate which frequency would cause that. Should it be induced resonance, could destabilize craft operation. The result could be anything from a temporary wobble through loss of vector to explosion. It all depended on the vagaries of just how the craft worked and how control was implemented. The principle of resonance is fundamental to all things based on size and shape and composition. Any object can ring like a bell when a certain frequency of sound, light, or RF is directed at it. During an earthquake, a displacement occurs in the Earth's crust. That displacement propagates outward in every direction. Crustal materials through which it passes resist displacement initially, but the modulation causes secondary displacements, which also propagate in all directions. These displacements bounce around, and where they reinforce one another cause further disruption. In this way, a single propagate waveform of sufficient amplitude can result in numerous lesser waveforms jittering everything in its path. If of sufficient amplitude and the right frequency, jittering can literally tear a thing apart. In bringing down a bogey, military personnel will have to pre-position a pulse generator along its flight path. It was thought that a sufficiently focused beam of broadband radiation would at minimum disrupt flight control or whatever passed for power generation in the system. Such a pulse could affect control and lead to a crash, as long as the craft did not manage to fail safe by vertical or simply hover over the high plains. It was Thursday, July 3rd, 1947. Personnel from White Sands had set up their scalar pulse generator. Communications with White Sands would give them a heads up about any bogey. No one from nearby Roswell base had been read in on the operation. No one was even sure the electromagnetic interference pulse generator would have any effect on the craft. But they had to try. They just had to try. After all, some 5 years earlier, self-defense forces in Los Angeles had failed to bring down such a bogey using conventional weapons. Machine guns and anti-aircraft batteries proved useless against a craft clearly illuminated against the night sky by searchlights. All this explained what motivated scientists and engineers from MIT to recover Nikola Tesla's papers and begin work on EMI pulse generation. The pulse cannon was positioned in the desert west-northwest of Corona, New Mexico. Its powerful batteries were fully charged and highly focused parabolic antenna directed to the south-southeast along the presumed flight path of the craft. A specially designed series of Klystron magnetron pairs set up to emit scalar pulse frequencies would do the work of generating these signals, but the cannon had to be operated by people, and people can make mistakes. Captain Robert S. Donovan was in charge of the crew. Petty Sergeant Tony Genovese monitored communication linked with White Sands. The plan was to maintain radio silence as the craft approached. Code words for flight speed and direction were established. The crew was prepared to remain on site as long as needed. Targeting radar would replace operators in the final target acquisition, but manual techniques were used for rough alignment. Captain Donovan would fire the pulse cannon once radar lock was achieved. Donovan knew such a lock was possible, but only if the craft was traveling at reasonable elevations and speeds. They tested it on various propeller and jet aircraft. They could achieve lock, but had yet to test the beam on a plane in flight. It had worked and knocked out the electronics on part craft, so there was a chance it would succeed with the saucer. Donovan would have but one opportunity. If detected, the craft would disappear in a heartbeat. Once the device was characterized, aliens could take steps to avoid them and its effects in the future. It was Thursday, July 3rd, 1947. There would be no appearance of that craft that evening. It was Friday, July 4th, 1947. Mr. and Mrs. Dan Wilmot were once again on the porch outside their Roswell home. From their vantage, they are said to have seen the craft explode. This, like many things, may have been reimagined thinking. The craft would have been at the beginning of its surveillance run observing the base. It would then have been taken out by EMI pulse further to the west-northwest, not too long after passing over Roswell. But there had been other witnesses. A boy of age 8 camped with his guardian uncle in the wilderness near Fort Sumner while on summer vacation. As the boy rested, the uncle contemplated the mysteries of the night sky. A streaking bolide caught the uncle's attention, and he knew that friend and famed astronomer, meteorite hunter Dr. Lincoln LaPaz would be interested in the event. It took a lot of time, but finally the uncle managed to reach the good doctor by phone. LaPaz informed him that there had been no meteor. He was already on it. Hints were made of hieroglyphic markings on the fuselage. Arrangements were made to meet. Together, they would look into the event. Several months after first investigating the crash, Dr. LaPaz and the uncle visited the actual crash site. This was along the flanks of the Capitan Mountains. Much evidence had been cleared away by military personnel, but sufficient damage to vegetation and surface remained to characterize the crash sequence. LaPaz had been read into the event and charged by the U.S. government to determine the flight vector of the downed craft. He was accompanied by both the uncle, an ethnobotanist, and a handler, Master Sergeant Louis Rickett. During that investigation, LaPaz could easily see that the craft had been initially struck west-northwest of Roswell and began losing fuselage over the Foster Ranch. Debris continued to scatter as flight control deteriorated. Eventually, the power unit melted its way through the airframe, and striking the ground, heat from the unit seared sand to glass. Generally, the craft struggled for altitude using remaining capacitive charge, but eventually struck woodland along the flank of the Capitans, coming to a freakish rest against several huge boulders. What goes up sometimes goes down in a very bad way. On the actual evening of the crash, an archaeology professor and small group of students were camped near the actual crash site. On seeing the event, the Professor William Curry Holden and students set out by dawn's light for evidence. The group arrived at sunrise to see a twisted metallic craft awkwardly embedded in the dirt and rocks along the flanks of the Capitan Range. But they were not alone. Already a military unit was examining the downcraft and coordinating for it and occupants to be transported to wherever HQ designated. Holden and the students were warned off, but only after they'd seen the craft, not its detritus or occupants, splayed against the terrain. Several days later, and within a day of making arrangements, Dr. LaPaz and the ethnobotanist and nephew converged on agreed-upon location in the desert. This would be the first inspection of the crash vector in LaPaz project. On this much earlier occasion, LaPaz had no handler and was free to investigate the scene. Leaving behind wife and family at the car, he, uncle, nephew, and a local familiar with the area set out to find the debris field near Corona. The local drove a circuitous route to prevent detection. The four avoided all the usual ways to go. They had to evade the growing cadre of military guards blocking access to the debris field found on the Foster Ranch. Unable to actually enter that debris field due to the presence of the soldiers collecting debris. The group was content to view things from a distance. The next day, the positive ethnobotanist made a second foray, leaving behind the elementary school-age nephew with instructions on how to handle things if they did not return. The debris field had been flagged to authorities by Foster Ranch foreman Matt Brazel. Foster Ranch foreman Matt Brazel collected some of the fuselage and took it to Roswell. The local sheriff notified Army Air Force Base personnel of the crash. Intelligence officer Major Jesse Marcel was dispatched to inspect the site. In his enthusiasm, Jesse gathered fuselage components, brought some home to family. Family members noted strange hieroglyphics on struts associated with the craft. Skin material was ultralight, flexible, and could be bent without creasing. In addition to retrieving material, Marcel made a report to the local newspaper. An article was published on July 8, 1947, claiming the recovery of crashed flying disc by USAAF personnel. This article included sightings several days earlier by the Wilmots. There, of course, had been no disc recovered near the ranch. After all, it was only a debris field. The craft came down much further to the west-northwest at the foot of the Capitan Mountains as its EM gravitic field dissipated. Marcel was not the only person to gather crash detritus. Locals from hours away came in droves. This transpired over several days following the crash, but before Marcel made his original perusal of the site. It's apparent that the military had no knowledge of the debris field until Marcel went to inspect it on the 8th of July. This can be explained by the fact that they focused on the actual crash site, a site that existed because they themselves had brought the craft down. Personnel associated with the operation were excited and troubled. They were cajoled and threatened to never reveal anything of their participation. This kind of intelligence personnel behavior was a natural outcome of the Second World War. Loose lips sink ships. loose lips sink ships. But it also had its place in the scheme of things. The lords of the dark face were not yet ready to play the alien card. Once the government learned of the detritus, they quickly secured the field. This was put in place right after Marcel's report of the age. On the 9th, Jesse Marcel's role in counterintelligence was invoked. He explained to local reporters in a rapidly descending press corps that the material retrieved came from a downed weather balloon. Meanwhile, crews secured the site and soldiers were sent to gather all the material lest highly secret advanced ballooning materials fall into the hands of, God forbid, the Soviets. Today, UFOs are such an anomaly. Flying saucers are an aberrant perception of wishful dreamers. Conspiracy theorists see UFOs as a modern development of a military-industrial intelligence complex, keeping all the good stuff for the elites of a breakaway civilization. The elites get to stand at the foot of the Great Face on Mars while we struggle to put enough gas in the tank to view the Grand Canyon in Arizona. The rich climb Everest and the true elites Olympus Mons. It can be said that the ensuing Cold War with the Soviets was a sham. America had a new enemy. An alien threat capable of extraordinary feats of aeronautics was present. By 1952, F-86 jets scrambled to intercept flying saucers invading American airspace over Washington, D.C. and elsewhere. Orders to attack such interlopers led to the loss of dozens of pilots and craft. By 1954-5, the UFO air war was over. The U.S. ceded control of its skies to what? To who? UFOs could come and go as they pleased. A new strategy was in the offing. The U.S. would have its own flying saucers. Its own flying saucers. Downcraft from Roswell, New Mexico and Kingman, Arizona would be puzzled over and later properly flagged American craft would ply the skies. A few EM gravitic craft were given the Americans for research purposes. Meanwhile, a later arrangement was made by representatives of the Dark Lords, MJ-12, who agreed to look the other way as animals were sliced and diced for life force. They also agreed to roll out the existence of UFOs according to a plan favoring space alien flying nuts and bolts craft. Every 10 years or so, a potent mix of information and misinformation will be leaked to the general public. In 2017, emphasis was placed on a possible threat centered on craft totally outperforming anything the U.S. military could put up against them. In rolling out that particular revelation, all references to past UFO research went conveniently unaddressed, despite 7 decades of accumulated reports involving sightings and contacts.